Hey guys, what is up? It is SkullFlag44 here, bringing another Hawks Ramblings video. This time talking about the NFC Championship, my thoughts on it, how everything's going to play out, and all that good stuff. First off, I want to say I'm sorry I haven't put a video up in a while. Unfortunately, I recorded one for the divisional round and it got lost. Not unfortunate that I recorded it because it was like 21 minutes long. A lot of good Hawks rambling, like just me and when I made the Hawks Rambling series, like this was a Hawks Rambling video. It just was rambling, talking about the Seahawks, all that good stuff. So that didn't really play out the way I wanted to. Unfortunately, iMovie isn't optimized right, and because I use it in the way I don't think it was intended, like I take a picture and I make it, go for a long duration, record a voiceover of that, and then I cut it to match up right. And I think if you like the way iMovie optimizes and renders stuff, it just doesn't play right. And so I have to be very limited what I do on my computer when I'm recording this. And if I try to do too much, and it'll just get behind and just gets all messed up. So I clicked like the X button to stop recording, and I should have clicked the recording button to stop it. So anyway, moving on to the NFC Championship game. This is a big game. It's the NFC Championship. It's the championship. It's like, man, it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to realize how big this game is because, you see, okay, the Super Bowl, but it's like, man, if you win this game, you're the champions of the NFC. That's a big freaking deal. And you get to the Super Bowl. That's what you want every season. You want a chance to just play in the Super Bowl. And so it's weird because it's still the balance of, all right, this is the game, this is what we're working for. But even if you win it, there's still something after that. It's like, I don't know, I think the Seahawks do a good job of saying, okay, every week's championship week, every week we've got to go 1-0. We haven't done anything yet, now we can do something. And, with that mentality, I think they'll be able to have success. And it's weird because that mentality, what they say that games for, they'll say it for the Jaguars game, they'll say it for the 49ers game. And it's tough to understand the effects of it at the time, but I think this is where it starts to pay dividends, which is pretty cool to see something that they've built up to pay off in this championship-like experience. So they shouldn't have to deal with any crazy pressure or anything like that, which will be cool. So what I'm going to try to focus on for this game, just looking at it, I'm going to try to start looking at it as the NFC Championship game and less as Seahawks 49ers and more of just like a semifinal Super Bowl, because that's really what it is. I mean, the first game is Denver and New England, which is going to be a fantastic game. Second game is Seattle, San Francisco. And they're just like mini Super Bowls, right? Mini Super Bowl to get up to the big Super Bowl in the end. So it's like you have to start taking this as, an experience as well, because that's what the Super Bowl is. The Super Bowl isn't just a game, but it's the whole experience. It's the commercials. It's the, the halftime show. It's all that. And I think the thing that really made me realize, okay, this is the NFC Championship game. This is a big championship game. It's not just another game to move on. Like this is, once they win, if, whoever wins this game is able to actually, say something, do something. And I think it might be a little harder for the 49ers to, I don't know, like realize that, or maybe, which might make it easier for them because they won this game last year. But I don't know, it still feels like, they're the reigning NFC champions, right? But it doesn't feel like that necessarily. So that's kind of one detriment. Like the Ravens won the Super Bowl. They're, for this whole season, they're the reigning Super Bowl champions. Like, that's still a conversation. I guess maybe it's because they floundered a bit, and the 49ers just kind of continued at the same pace where they're at before. So, I don't know. It is what it is. But I was going to say, the part that made me realize, okay, this is just a big game. This is like a spectacle. It's more than just a single game to get on to the next one, is when the Seahawks announced that they're going to have Macklemore and Ryan Lewis perform at the halftime for a halftime show. And I was like, oh wow, okay, that makes sense. You don't usually do that for a regular game, but this is a championship game. So that's going to be pretty cool. It's just going to be a great game. And because it's against the 49ers, you couldn't really draw it up any better. Honestly, like, I guess maybe make it a farewell to Candlestick would have been nice in theory, but then it's kind of like, it could be like a passing of the torch, to like, okay, the 49ers Seahawks dominated for a while. Cardinals got their Super Bowl run in there. That was kind of weird. 49ers dominated for a bit. Now it's the Seahawks taking that back. Could be something sort of like that. And I'm telling you, the atmosphere is going to be absolutely insane for this game because it's when the Seahawks won the NFC Championship in 2005, the 2005 season, that was just such a big deal. Obviously I can't remember each part. I do remember watching the Super Bowl, and even then thinking like, what are these refs doing? And obviously 8 years later, people are still talking about that. But I don't think it ever was like this. Like when I look back on that, I honestly couldn't tell you the Seahawks played the Panthers, a couple months ago. But now it's like everything's ramped up. Everyone's excited for this game. Everyone's talking about it. Heck, we had an assembly for Martin Luther King, and like there was a Seahawks chant going on. Everyone's so pumped up for this game, and I think it's one of those things where it's like, all right, everyone around the stadium knows what's going on. Everyone in the city knows what's going on, and the people in the stadium are going to feel an urge to, let that out and make a big impact on the game. I don't know. I think whatever the Seahawks do, whatever success they have, people are going to erupt on it. It's just going to be awesome. And part of that is the rivalry. The Seahawks have grown to hate the 49ers, and not actually the Seahawks players, but the fans. Like, just hate the 49ers. Like, my sister, who will watch some Seahawks games, like she watched the last one, understands some football stuff, but not the whole picture. She's like, I hate Kaepernick. I hate the 49ers. Like, it's just kind of like the culture that has been created, not even in big football fans, but just like in Seattle as a city versus San Francisco. And it's interesting because my dad grew up a 49ers fan, but has switched over to Seahawks fan. So it's kind of a cool situation for him. And honestly, I feel like I'm repeating myself because I talked about this in my last video, but obviously I didn't get out. So I don't think I am. But, if the Seahawks didn't exist, my go-to team would probably be the 49ers, because that's the team my dad root for. That's the team I remember watching football with my dad and like, what's this game? And just kind of getting into it and be like, oh, this is pretty sweet. And then obviously once the Seahawks started to find success with their Super Bowl run, I was like, that's kind of what tied me to football. And I'm like, been a Seahawks fan since then. And I was thinking about, okay, what type of fan am I really? Like, I'm not a fair weather fan necessarily. I'm not a bandwagoner necessarily, but I'm like some mix of the two. But I think almost everyone's like that. Like, maybe not everyone, but like I've followed the Seahawks. I always want to watch the Seahawks game. If I can't watch the Seahawks game, I want to listen to it on the radio. I want to do everything I can to watch the Seahawks game. That's been like that, for the past 3 years. And it's also tougher because I'm 16 and constantly growing in mental capacity, constantly growing in, my interests and all that stuff. So it's hard to get once you are at age 20 or out of college, and start working, just around 24 is when you kind of hit that groove, like real work life or whatever, and have been doing it for a couple years. 24 to 29, it's like not you're going to still have different interests, but it's not like you're going to be growing all that much, or even later in life. But so it's hard to tell, how my interest has grown or how much room I've had for interest and all that sort of stuff. But now it's like week and week, it's like, okay, I want to watch the press. I want to watch the press conferences. I want to listen to all sorts of podcasts. And I think because they've had success, it's more fun for me to do that sort of stuff, and I'll always watch the games, I think, especially after this, and knowing what the Seahawks are capable for and how they look like they're going to have success in some capacity for the next 5 or 6 years. There's no reason that's gonna slow down. It doesn't look like, but it's just like, I don't know. For me, especially, it was really noticeable last year, I felt like, because the Seahawks were 6-5, then they started winning some games, and as the won more games, I got more excited, got more interested, started looking at more stuff, and I don't know, just kind of interesting, the progression of all that sort of stuff. And so getting back to my another point is that I don't really hate the 49ers as a franchise. I actually respect the 49ers as a franchise. I don't like the fans, the 49ers. Of these current 49ers. I don't like the players in the 49ers. The people of San Francisco. not really have anything against people in San Francisco, but just like, I don't know, it's just kind of clear to me Seattle's better. But I will say this, if I had to pick like, I enjoy the Joe Montana era more than I do the Seahawks era, whoever they had at that time. Before the Seahawks entered the NFC West, I'd probably put even though I was like, I was born in 1997, so I was ages 1 through 5, there. I'd probably be a 49ers fan, so I don't know, it's not like I don't like the 49ers for the players they have, but I respect their franchise. And I like this. Obviously, it's not even close between the Seahawks and 49ers, but if the Seahawks didn't exist, I think I'd be a 49er fan. So it's not as easy for me to be like, oh, I hate the 49ers, but just like, I don't know, it's easy. It's easy to hate the 49ers because everyone hates the 49ers here. I heard a story today that like some girl was wearing like a 49ers shirt or something like that, and she got something thrown at her, like, I think it was like a joke, but like some sandwich thrown at her, and so it's like, people here are really, really don't like the 49ers. All right, anyway, moving on. This is Game 3. So Game 3 of this season matchup, the rubber match. The first game the Seahawks destroyed. The second game, back and forth. It was kind of a weird game because the 49ers ended up winning, but it was kind of like, I don't know, they just kind of ground out the clock, but that sounds weird. It's weird because, like, I'm not going to get into that, but the how the use of grind has grown to be like, gotta, get on my grind and all that sort of stuff. That's a thought I've had at some other point. But when the Seahawks when the 49ers ran out the clock, it was kind of a weird end because it's like, all right, it's not like Wilson got a chance to do something at the end or anything like that. It's just kind of like, oh, there's a first down. They did a great job. If I was a 49ers fan, I'd be ecstatic the way that played out, and it would be definitely much different in my head. But it wasn't like a commanding victory. Like, it wasn't, I don't know, like they had a solid grasp. It wasn't like it was a fluke, like the Seahawks deserved to win that, but it wasn't like a strong, super blowout victory like the Seahawks had in Week 2, which was a big part. Early on in that game, it was pretty back and forth, but then by the fourth quarter, the 49ers were drained. The Seahawks were still pumping from that energy. I heard one 49ers, I think it was like Niners Nation, which is like the SB Nation Twitter account and blog for the 49ers, said, well, actually that first game wasn't really a blowout until like the fourth quarter or whatever, which is sort of true. It was like 3-12 or whatever. But then it ended up, I think he said it wasn't really a blowout, but it's like, okay, you lose 29-3. It's a blowout, buddy. It's a blowout. In the Seahawks world, if the Seahawks get beat by more than a score, it's a blowout. If the Seahawks get beat by like 7 points, you beat us pretty good. But if the Seahawks get beat by more than a score, it's like, okay, no debate there. The Seahawks haven't lost by more than a score, and they didn't lose one last season. They haven't lost one this season, so I don't know. That's just something to keep in mind there. And I honestly think the pivotal factor could be the 12th man, the atmosphere, which moves into another thought, is Percy Harvin being out for this game with his concussion, which is what I expected at the beginning of the week. And once he got injured, once he got on that first hit, got that first hit, I was like, oh, he looks out for the game. And then he came back, and I'm like, what the heck? Then he got hit again. It was just kind of like, I think that's what it seemed like, cumulative, which I don't know how he passed the first test or whatever. It might be something sketchy there. But then it was just like, man, concussions are hard to come back from. I have a friend who got a concussion on Monday, and he was just saying like, oh, I just felt this like pounding headache, can't focus on anything. I think he's feeling better now. But it's like, man, to go from, being able to play at a super high level in a super, super physical game, it's like, I think I said something like, even if Harvin plays on, on Sunday against the 49ers, I'd be surprised if he was able to finish the game, because it's a tough game. And so the good thing about this, if the Seahawks are able to pull off a win, he should be good to go for the Super Bowl. But I know that's not what anyone's thinking about right now. But another side tangent is the people that think, oh, we can't think about the Super Bowl. That's not even an option. We can't even do that. Nope. That doesn't even exist. It's this game. We got to have a 1-0 mentality. There's nothing after this. This is the game we have to win. It's like blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, I don't know if I've said this before. I've had this rant to a couple people. I get that mentality and I get your point, but that's what the Seahawks players, coach and coaching staff, and everyone related to the Seahawks who actually are a part of the experience there. Even like the fans, you'd even say like at the game, like when they're at the game, need to think that okay, this is the biggest game, this is the most important game, all that sort of stuff. But it's like to think that this was Softy radio host said was like, I'm not going to be talking about anything after the Saints game, any possibilities. It's like, dude, it's your radio host. Your job is to talk about this sort of stuff. It's important to look at when the Broncos and Patriots are playing before the Seahawks. I'm thinking, wow, the Seahawks get a chance to play these teams after this game. It's like, man, if they win this game, they're going to the Super Bowl. And that's what the Seahawks players are thinking too. It's like they have to have that 1-0 mentality to get to the Super Bowl, but they're still thinking about the Super Bowl. It's like it's stupid not to to block your brain from thinking about the next level, because that's what can get you motivated for this current game. If you get too trapped in the first game and think you're going to blow by it, you're going to have a problem there. But I assure you, none of the Seahawks think that. And so I don't know. Anyway, getting back to Percy Harvin, I think that's I don't know. It definitely changes the game a bit because Percy Harvin gives them a really dynamic piece of offense that I think it'd be really hard for the 49ers to really compete against. I had the Seahawks at like 95% win rate with Percy Harvin, 90% without, which is, you might be realizing, wow, that's pretty high, much higher than anyone else, because the atmosphere is going to be so crazy. The Seahawks obviously lost against the Cardinals, but have been so good everywhere else when they've been, fully motivated, and I think that Cardinals game was good for them to get them back on track in the sense of, okay, we really need to do this. And then moving into KJ Wright, who's going to be back for this game, that's big. Some people were saying might be more important than Percy Harvin, and it's not, unfortunately. It's kind of sucks for KJ Wright because he plays really, really well at linebacker, and Percy Harvin obviously is a dynamic playmaker and has a lot of talent, but really hasn't been able to perform this season because of injuries. And just honestly, the better player this season, and if you were to both put them out there this week, would be KJ Wright. But Percy Harvin plays has a much bigger impact, and it's much more important because he offers that dynamic that the Seahawks don't have. He's playing on the offense, which is the weaker side of the Seahawks, and the difference between there is no replacement for Percy Harvin, period. Like you just lose the dynamic of the offense, which is kind of different from what the Seahawks usually do with their next man up mentality. But you can see the way they played Percy Harvin. They were running like jet sweeps and all that sort of stuff, and bubble screens to him. It's not like they plug Golden Tate in that position or anything like that. They have a special package for him, which is really interesting. While KJ Wright, you just plug Malcolm Smith in there. It's going to be a little different, but it's pretty much the same thing. So there's that. And then Russell Wilson, people have commented on, okay, past 5 games, 32 QBR, really kind of struggled, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, when you look at him, you look at his performances like in a vacuum, they haven't been good, period. There's no way to justify that, his stats have looked good, but there is way to justify his performances have been good because he's, won 4, what is it, past 5 games. I don't know what the 5 games exactly, but they've won most of those games. I mean, obviously they lost against the Cardinals, but the ones they had to win, he found a way to win against the Rams to get the 1 seed, and he found a way to win against the Saints to get the move on to the NFC Championship game. It's like at this point in the season, if this is like the first 5 games or middle of the season and he's doing this, it's like, okay, this could cause for concern. But honestly, if you're winning games at this point, it doesn't matter how you win games. It's 2 more games, 2 more wins, and you're the champions. It doesn't matter how well it looks. It doesn't matter who gets hurt. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. It matters whether you get the job done. And I think Russell Wilson's the type of guy. I mean, the part that made me really believe is he said something like, someone's like, I forget the exact situation, but the scenario was like a reporter asked, what do you think of your performances and, how you've kind of struggled a bit, and, what are you going to do to fix that? And he's like, I think it was like, what do you think the offense's struggle, of past, and what are you guys going to do to fix that? And he's like, honestly, I'm pretty excited because a lot of that's on me, and that gives me a great, I love challenges and being able to improve myself. And it's like, obviously I totally butchered that. I don't remember it exactly, but it was something that like stood out to me like, dang, that's pretty impressive. This dude is taking on any potential failure and just loves to attack it. Even if he, doesn't mean that exactly. That's what he's portraying, and that's what he's portraying to his teammates, and that has such a big effect. Which is, another thing relating back to Percy Harvin. Like, Percy Harvin might not be able to do everything that he could, when he's fully healthy. But just having the threat of him out there, the change in what the defense perceives the offense as, that's almost as important. It's like that sort of situation. But I think he's going to play up to task. I mean, he's played against some really good defenses. The Cardinals, great defense. Rams, good defense. Saints, good defense. 49ers, great defense. I mean, really solid defense. It's not like he's had anything really easy to do out there, and it's not like he's had much to work with. When Percy Harvin was in, the offense was really clicking, and then when he was out, it kind of struggled a bit. But another point I want to make is I don't think that's really on Russell Wilson. I don't think that's really on any of the players. I think that's more on the coaching staff, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing because the coaching staff is going out there saying, especially last week, okay, we have a 16-0 lead. We're going to play everything conservative. We're not going to turn the ball over. We're just going to run the ball. We're going to do a couple, short pass. If it doesn't work out, no problem. We're just going to try to survive this game, which from a fan's perspective is kind of tough because it's like, man, you want your team to go down there and crush. Like, there's so much room for improvement there, but it's like they're really embracing that mentality. Okay, we got the lead. We're just going to try to get the win. We're going to try to get the win every week. We have nothing else to prove but to get the win. And you might be like, well, you have a better chance to win if you're up, 23-0 than 16-0. True. But if you take those shots, with higher, reward comes higher risk. And if you have an interception there and all of a sudden it's a pick six and all of a sudden it's 16-8, and then, when the Saints score down late again, it could be tied up or they could be down 2 or something like that. And all of a sudden it's much more tense. And so, while you might not, agree with that philosophy completely, you have to be able to understand it. And I think, I don't know, it's really silly when people talk about how much the offense has struggled and how big of a deal that is. And it's such like a petty thing to me to look at and pick at because, man, this team has done so well. And it's like, you look at a team like the Mariners and it's like, man, you could pick every part of that team out and be like, okay, this is the problem because they're losing all these games. But it's like the Seahawks are still winning games. And, I guess you could go back to that Cardinals game and say, okay, their offense struggled. They weren't winning games there. But, I mean, honestly, they didn't really feel like they needed to win that game. And they didn't need to win that game. I mean, they got the 1 seed without it. And so I think that was more of a problem. Once, if they're in a situation where it's like a must-win, huge game, and their offense is struggling completely, which very well could be Sunday. I mean, that's what a lot of people think could happen. That's when you show concern. It's like looking at all these like signs and like, oh, the tea leaves are telling me this and like all that sort of stuff. It's like, come on, there's so many different variables. It's so hard to judge that sort of stuff. All right, moving on. The 12th man. My thoughts on that. I think it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be really exciting to see who raises the 12th man flag. My number one would be Matt Hasselbeck because that'd be so awesome to have that 2005, proverbial, passing the torch, like I said again, to to Russell Wilson and this team to be able to take the 49ers on. It's a big deal who raises the 12th man flag because I don't know. Like, I think it's easy to say, oh, it's just a ceremony, but it actually impacts the game. If this person is able to get the fans riled up from the beginning, someone great, someone they want to cheer for, someone they can get everyone cheering for, because if you get, a guy that just kind of wants to go and watch the game, and, all of a sudden Matt Hasselbeck's up there and reliving all those memories, it's like, and he starts cheering then, it could be him cheering later on, it's like that whole, domino effect and sort of thing. But the only problem with that is he's still under contract with the Colts. I think he's going to be a free agent after this, but obviously the Colts season just ended. Would be kind of weird if he was already on the Seahawks, but that'd be pretty sweet. Then Holmgren would be my number 2 because obviously great coach for the Seahawks, led the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. Everyone would love that, but apparently he hasn't been asked. So then everyone's looking at like, okay, could it be Paul Allen out there, the owner of the Seahawks, which I think would be pretty great too because saved the Seahawks. It'll almost be like, oh man, dude, thank you for letting us have an opportunity, like, thanking him for all the work. That'd be pretty good. But if it's anyone other than that, I'll be pretty sweet. Maybe Sean Alexander. That could be pretty sweet, but I don't know, I'll definitely be judging who it is. If it's like, some people want Macklemore, but is Macklemore really, like, you could do so much better. This is the biggest game. It's like, Macklemore would be sweet, but it's not like he really means much to this franchise, It's like, it'd be a sweet for a regular game, but it doesn't get bigger than this at this stadium. It's like, this is as big as you can get in the Super Bowl. You go off to a different stadium, and that. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Perspective. So this is something, like I mentioned at the beginning, trying to maintain, like, okay, such a big game, so many things to watch, so many stats to track. My mind's going to be racing this whole game, trying to figure everything out, trying to be like, okay, we're on pace for this amount, pace for this amount. But sometimes you just got to sit back and say, all right, this is an event, just got to enjoy this, just got to sit back and say, hey, let the best team win. It's hard to be like, my goal is to not be all that stressed out for the game. Like, I'm going to be excited regardless, that's for sure, but not to be like freaking out or anything like that, because until it gets to the very end, obviously when things set in, but it's like, all right, it's a game, whatever happens, happens, in that. So that's kind of my thoughts on that, all that stuff. And one other thing to note is that I'm going to put this up before the game, and then after the game, I'm going to do a video, whether it's a Super Bowl like hype video or like a season reflection video. But I want to say overall, before the playoffs started, once the Seahawks had got that 1 seed, my big goal was for them to get past the divisional round, get to the NFC Championship game. That's where I was going to be fairly happy. Obviously, I'm going to be sad and disappointed if they lose. But it's not going to be like I don't know, it's like overall, if they had gotten to the same point last year, or they had lost the divisional round, it would be much more disappointing. But this year they've made improvements. They got to the NFC Championship game, and they've had a great season. It's been an awesome season to watch, so much fun to watch, so much growth, so much success, so much talent. It's been fantastic, and to give almost the max amount of games, one off the Super Bowl, it's going to be great. So I don't know. Regardless, it's going to be an awesome Super Bowl, honestly, whether it's the 49ers and Broncos, Seahawks and Broncos, 49ers and Patriots, Seahawks and Patriots. It's going to be great. So, I don't know, hard to be. It's like, at this point, I thought, before the playoffs, like, okay, if they can get to this game, then it's just like, whatever happens, happens. It's going to be awesome. Like, I think like initial disappointment, is definitely going to happen, but it's like, if you're looking to look at the season, like, wow, the Seahawks failed. It's like, that's silly. They've done what they wanted to do. Now it's just kind of gravy. So that's my thoughts on that. Go Hawks, and let's get it.